Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Turkey. If you are new to my channel, hi, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Chelsea and I'm an American living in Turkey and I make videos about that. In today's video, I will be covering another case on femicide in Turkey. If you missed my first video, I will link it. In my first video, I discussed the terrible case of Pınar Gültekin, which happened just last summer, so not even that long ago. Before we get started in today's video, I have a really big announcement, big for me anyway. I have decided to start a whole second YouTube channel where I will exclusively be uploading videos about femicide in Turkey. If you are interested in learning more about femicide in Turkey, if you are interested in just spreading awareness or being up to date on the victims and the cases, then please go over and subscribe to that channel. It would really mean a lot to me. So for today's video, I will be covering the tragic case of Jeren Özdemir. And a lot of you guys actually requested that I do this in the comments of my last video. So today's case took place December 3rd of 2019 in the city of Ordu, Turkey. And if you're not familiar with the geography of Turkey, Ordu is located in the north, and this area is referred to as the Black Sea region because it literally borders the Black Sea. So the city that Jeren grew up in, it just had a lot of rainfall, foggy weather, trees, lots of forests, lots of nature. I mean, it's a really beautiful city to grow up in. And Jeren was actually a junior at a university in Ordu. So she lived with her family still. She lived with her mother, her father, and her older sister Gizem in an apartment. And then she was going to a local nearby university where she was studying fine arts. Her biggest dream was to become a ballerina, which I just think is so beautiful and magical. I mean, how many people are brave enough to become a ballerina? I just think that's so amazing. So this was a genuine ambition and dream for Jeren. I believe ever since she was 8 years old, she had started taking dance lessons, and ever since she found her love of dance, she was so hardworking and so ambitious, and she knew she wanted to be a ballerina. She trained really hard for years and years and years. She entered all the dance competitions, she enrolled at her university to study fine arts, and on top of that, after school in the evenings, she was actually teaching ballet at a nearby dance school. So she was teaching ballet to, little ballet students, and I mean, that's a lot to take on. She already had full-time university, she was a junior, and in the evenings, she was teaching ballet. That is how ambitious this girl was. That's how much she wanted to be a ballerina. She was gonna be a ballerina, no matter what. So as I said, Jeren was studying fine arts at her university, and this major really suited her personality. Everyone around her described her as being very introspective, and she loved reading and writing and listening to music, and she was just a very creative, introspective person. Her parents described her as being so easygoing, so calm. They never had a problem with her growing up. On December 3rd, 2019, Jeren had just finished working a shift at her dance school. She was on her way home, and I guess the time was around 7:30 or 8 p.m. at night, so it really wasn't that late. However, as I said, it was December, so obviously we all know it's going to be dark out at that time, even though it actually isn't that late. And it's a little bit unclear about exactly how far the distance between Jeren's dance school is and her apartment building. Some of the sources claimed that it was about 2 kilometers. Some said that it was double that. So I'm not entirely sure how far away her school was, but I guess it was, we can say at least maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes, at least. So on this day, December 3rd, Jeren had just finished her shift. She was walking home as she always did, and it didn't seem like a very unsafe neighborhood. It seemed like she was walking through a relatively crowded area. There were people around her, there were shops open, there were street lights, so there was really no need for her to be worried or, scared. However, security cameras around her started to pick up on a man who was following her. So this man was following her for quite a while, but as far as we know, Jeren was completely unaware of it. This man was following her. However, she did reach her apartment building. She didn't have her keys with her, so she actually just rang the doorbell to the apartment building. There's a main entrance where you need to have your first set of keys to enter, and then when you reach your apartment, you need your personal set of keys to enter there. So she didn't have the keys. She rang the doorbell and her older sister Gizem was already at home. They had probably done something like this a million times before. I know when you live in a family with a lot of people, it's just so much easier to not worry about like who has the keys, do you have keys, do I have keys? If you know someone is going to be home, it's so much easier to just ring the doorbell and just ask them to drop the keys down. And that's exactly what Jeren did. She rang the doorbell, her sister Gizem came to the window, and I'm not sure which floor they lived on exactly, but I believe it was at least the second or third. It was somewhere up there a little bit. So her sister Gizem came and just tossed down the keys to her. And her sister actually noticed something out of the ordinary. She noticed that there was a man kind of nearby watching, and she thought it was a little bit odd, but I mean, he wasn't doing anything suspicious necessarily, so like, what could she do about it? She saw her sister there, she threw her down the keys. I mean, her sister was right at the door, like, what could possibly happen? Gizem went back to whatever it was she was doing, and she waited for Jeren to come up any minute. And after a few minutes, she noticed that Jeren wasn't coming up. She had thrown her down the keys. She literally saw her right at the door, but her sister wasn't coming up. So after a few minutes, Gizem decided to go and check like where was her sister, what was happening. And she went down to the bottom floor, to the entrance of the apartment building, and that is where she found her little sister lying in a pool of her own blood. So her sister called an ambulance. I'm sure she was just freaking out, and they had Jeren rushed to a nearby hospital where she was still alive, and they got her into surgery, and they, tried to fix all of her wounds. Unfortunately, Jeren didn't make it. She died shortly after her surgery. Very, very tragic. So what exactly happened between the short time that Gizem threw the keys down to her sister, and then a few minutes later, she found her lying in her own blood? What had happened was Jeren took the keys, she went to open the door, and then that man who had been watching her, walked up, he approached her, and he actually asked her a question. He asked her something along the lines of, "Excuse me, do you know if Metin lives here?" And so naturally, when you hear someone behind you asking you a question, you're gonna turn around. And that's what Jeren did. She turned around to see who was talking to her, and as soon as she turned around, this man stabbed her, and then he ran off. Just like that. It happened in an instant. Jeren just screamed and collapsed. She was just defenseless and helpless and just, As I already said, unfortunately, Jeren did not survive her wounds. She made it to the hospital, but I'm not sure if she just lost too much blood or if there was just too much damage. There's no forensic report out on that, but whatever the exact reason was, she sadly passed away that same night. So this was just unbelievably sad. I mean, I have an older sister, I have two older sisters, and Jesus, I just can't even imagine like how horrible it must have been for Jeren and for her sister and then for her family. It's just unbelievably tragic. So let's get into the obvious question here. Who was the man? Who was the man that was following Jeren? Who was the man that was watching her? Who was the man that stabbed her? Well, this guy's name was Özgür Arduç. And I guess he was around 35, 36 years old. And this guy, you are not gonna believe it, you guys are gonna hate what I'm about to say. He had literally just escaped from prison the day before he murdered Jeren. I know, that's so frustrating and so upsetting. And he was actually in prison because he either attempted to murder a child or he successfully murdered a child. Every source that I found gave a different statement. Some of them said he tried to murder a child, but the child lived. Other sources say that he murdered the child. Either way, at the bare minimum, he was in prison for attempted murder of a child. For some unknown reason, he was in a higher security prison, but he had recently been transferred to a minimum security prison. And because of that transfer, because he was transferred to a place with a lot less security, he was able to escape. And as soon as he escaped, the first thing on his mind was murder. He wanted to find someone to murder. That was literally his only goal, was to murder someone. Already you can understand that this man has a very sick psychology, not a good frame of mind. In later testimonies, there was a local veterinarian who claimed that this man, Arduç, had come into his clinic and had asked him for ether, which I didn't know what ether was before I researched it, but I guess it's like an anesthesia for animals when they go under surgery or when they're euthanized. I have no idea, but it's a very sketchy thing to ask for. Anyway, thank God the vet was really smart and he refused. He said that this guy was super sketchy. I'm not gonna give you any ether. You're not even a vet. And then there was another man, I guess he was the shop owner. It was a gun shop or a weapons shop. And he also claimed, you know, after Jeren's murder, it was very highly publicized, so people started coming forward saying like, oh, I saw him, oh, I know him. And so the gun shop owner also claimed that he had seen this man in his shop and he was browsing weapons, specifically browsing harpoons, which I guess a harpoon is like a freaking spear, like when you go spear fishing or something. It's a horrible weapon. Very, very sketchy, unhealthy behavior. He escaped from prison, asking for either, looking at harpoons. This man just wanted to kill. So as if that's not already bad enough, this guy Arduç claimed that the reason that he hated people, and that's something that he kept repeating in every interview, in every court case, in every testimony, he kept saying how much he just hated people. He really had this resentment towards everyone and anyone, just living humans, not even just women, just everyone. He claimed that the reason that he hated people so much was because he was actually raped before twice, and it's unclear at which age this happened or by who. But he said that after that happened, he became very, you know, like resentful and hateful. Slowly, he built up his criminal record. He was throwing cats and dogs in front of moving trains, which, if you know anything about serial killers or true crime, you know that when a child abuses an animal, it is a huge red flag that they will do something worse later. All the famous serial killers, from Ted Bundy to Jeffrey Dahmer, all of them started off killing animals and then building up to killing people. Ugh, it's so horrible, but you guys can really get an idea about this guy's character. So anyway, the police found him pretty quickly, and actually, I guess when they arrested him for the murder of Jeren, he actually stabbed one of the police officers who was arresting him. If I read that correctly, and I think I did, forgive me, I'm translating all of this from Turkish articles, so some of the information might be a tad bit wobbly, but I'm quite sure that I understood it correctly, and this guy literally stabbed a police officer while they were arresting him, and this police officer like had really bad wounds. He had to be rushed to the hospital and he was in critical condition. So yeah, guys, this guy is literally just a murderer, like just wants to kill. And actually I have a direct quote from Arduç which says, "I have a desire to kill. I don't regret it. If you let me go, I will commit crimes again. I want you to get me treated." So this guy is very much aware that he is a criminal and that he's sick. And in fact, when this case went to court, he did try to plead the insanity plea, which, if you're not familiar with the insanity plea, it's when you try to get a lesser sentence because you claim that you weren't in your right state of mind, your psychology wasn't healthy enough to be making rational decisions. However, the court, the judge, was not having any of that. Even Arduç's own father said that no, he is perfectly in his right state of mind. He's just, evil. So his insanity plea just went right out the window, and he ended up getting life in prison as his sentence. So he will be in prison for the rest of his life. If you're not familiar with Turkish law, that is actually the harshest sentence that you can get. They don't have capital punishment in Turkey, so he got the highest extent of the law as a sentence. And as you guys can probably imagine, this really affected Jeren's family so badly. Her sister was, I'm sure, just traumatized by the whole situation, just finding her sister's body, and I literally can't imagine how horrible that must have been. Jeren's mother, who I believe is a nurse, I think she might have been working at the time that this happened, but I'm not sure. She was just inconsolable. She was giving TV interviews and she was holding Jeren's sweater and smelling it and saying that this is the only thing she has left of her daughter is the scent on her clothes, which just fucking broke my heart.
En son giydiklerinden birisi. Ben çok titizdi, dolapta bırakmazdı. Elimde taşıyorum. 2 gün önce evde giydim ben yavrum. Sadece kokusunu bundan alıyorum. 1 saat giyse çıkarıyordu. Çok titizdi. Sake çok böyle kendine çok bakardı. Ben hayranla bakıyordum. Çocuğuma doyamadım. O da bana doyamadı. Bensiz kalamazdı yavrum. Bensiz kalamazdı. Bir tek kokuya kaldım ben. Hiç kimse yanmasın. Herkes huzurlu yaşasın. Benim tek isteğim bu.
That's horrible. Oh, it's just, if you want to research more into this case, feel free to, but I promise it will break your heart. The community in Ordu, Jeren's hometown, they were completely devastated by this loss. Jeren was nothing but an amazing person in the community. She had these goals. She wanted to be a ballerina. She had worked so hard. Oh, and it's just so beautiful, that she had these dreams, and it's just horrible that it was stolen from her. Later on in one of the court hearings, the criminal Arduç had explained that he actually wasn't going to kill Jeren that night. He was actually following another person and he had wanted to take that person's life. However, for some reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe they went with a group of friends, or it's unclear. And then when that didn't work out, he instead found Jeren. And it's really sickening, but the reason behind choosing Jeren was because she was skinny and couldn't really fight him. That's literally what he said. He just was picking a victim who would be really easy to attack and wouldn't fight him back. It's just horrible. So yeah guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. And I just want to give you one last reminder that I am making these videos to spread awareness. I literally have just taken all this information from the internet, which you can also find just as easily, and I have just organized it into an easily watchable video form so that we can spread the stories, so that we can keep, you know, our sisters' stories going. Like, it's just so, it's so frustrating and so devastating and so scary. Thank you so much for watching this video. As I said, if you are interested in hearing about more stories of victims of femicide, then I will leave a link to my second channel and you can feel free to subscribe to that. And let me know which other cases you would like me to cover. It's very important to me that we cover as many cases as we can and we keep these women's names alive. And also guys, I'm just gonna say one last thing. It's so horrible what happened to Jeren, but she deserves to be remembered for her positive characteristics and that she was a beautiful, bright ballerina. She was a ballerina. That's what she will always be remembered as. She left too soon, unfortunately, but we will always remember her in a positive light. Guys, take care, be safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.